Good morning and welcome to Coffee and the Word. I'm always amazed when I wake up and I see the verse of the day and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to talk about this one. And this is one of those verses because I think if you hear this right, it can be transformative. And so it's Jesus talking. And let me just say something about Jesus really quick. Jesus wasn't necessarily a truth maker in the sense that he didn't speak something and so therefore it became true as much as he was a truth revealer. He spoke something that was true, if that makes sense. He spoke something that was true that we hadn't really understood. And today's verse is one of those verses. Today's verse, he says this. In Mark chapter 8 and verse 35, he says, whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. And so the truth that he's speaking here is you can't hold on with a death grip to the things that you've been doing, the life you've been living, and expect to progress in a new life. In other words, you can't have this future that he promises while having a death grip on the past that you've experienced. You see, the past that you've experienced is the reality that you've lived in that has created the negative reality that you want to escape from. You know, when we think about it, Jesus is speaking and he's like, look, guys, here's one of your problems. You want what I'm offering. You want to join my cause. You want to experience what I'm promising, but you also want to hold on to all the junk that has prevented you from experiencing that already. And so Jesus speaks to us, he says that whoever wants to save their life will have to lose it. In fact, before that, he says, if anyone, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. And there's a lot there too. But the first thing he says is, look, being self-centered and selfish will never produce for you the results that you're looking for. By the way, this is a universal truth. If you want to be if you want to get where you want to go, you can't get there by still being who you are today. You have to deny that. You have to leave it behind. You also have to be willing to take the risk. You see, one of the things that causes us to kind of shirk back from truly investing ourselves in doing what God has called us to do, one of the things that stops us is we're afraid that it's going to hurt. And so he says, you have to be willing to deny yourself. You have to be willing to take up your cross, which isn't a small thing. Like, we don't hear that the way the people in Jesus' day would have heard that. When he said you must be willing to take up your cross, this was you got to be willing to go to the grave for this. You have to be so passionate about this that if it costs you your life in the process, it was worth it. And so then he goes on to say it even more clearly. Whoever, in verse 35, wants to save their life, it won't happen. And this is one of the other truths that we don't really understand is you're not doing a very good job of navigating your life by holding on to it super tight. It's not working. And so Jesus says, if you really want what I'm offering, and obviously you do, you keep coming out and you keep hearing me and you see the healings and you see the miracles, but you hear the words. And he's like, don't just let it tickle your ears. Embrace it. Take a risk. Jump. Allow yourself to truly experience what Jesus has come to offer. But the only way you're ever going to is if you're willing to risk everything. And when I say risk everything, I mean lose everything. All that stuff that you have put all your hopes and dreams and passions in will never produce for you what the promise of God in Christ Jesus produces. And so this isn't something that we can guess about today's world. Look, When Jesus was walking this earth, there were lots of people who came out. They came out in droves to listen to him. They knew there was something special in him. I believe they even knew that if they could find the courage to do what he was suggesting, that they would have gotten the life that they wanted. But it takes courage. It takes a lot of courage for you to stamp out, leave. And I'm reminded of what God makes Abraham do, right? God comes to Abraham and he's like, get up and leave the country that you've known your whole life. Get up and leave the country and your family that you've been around your whole life, where you have comfort, where you're totally okay and everything is just, it's not great, but it's not terrible. Get up from there to a country I will show you. I'm promising you and your descendants something that is far greater than anything you'll ever experience here. Jesus is saying the same thing to us today. Get up and leave your past. Get up and abandon all of your securities for the securities that I offer you. Because if you want to save your life, what will end up happening is you won't, because you can't. You become the victim, so to speak. I hate to use that word, but you become the victim of the reality you live in. And Jesus is saying, how about instead of that, you become a victor? Give up that life. Pursue the life and the gospel that I'm talking about, and then become a victor. Because in him, all the promises are revealed. All the ones we really like, the ones that say he will give you a peace that passes understanding. You don't get that unless you lose the life you had before, because the peace that passes understanding is found only in this courageous relationship with Christ. When he says that we're more than conquerors, you don't get to experience that and still hold on to the timid life that you've had before. You have to be courageous. So when he says, if you want to save your life, you have to lay it down. You have to be willing to lose it. He means it. So let me give you a little practical thing. This is true in all of your relationships too. If you truly want to flourish in your relationship with your children or your spouse or your parents, you have to be willing to lay down your self-centeredness and leave that behind and embrace the promises of the fullness of a relationship with somebody. I hope this helps. I hope you consider these words. I hope this opened a different light to this text to you, because it certainly did for me when I read it this morning. This has been another edition of Coffee and the Word. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. God bless.